I've been sitting around all morning, partially wanting to read, partially getting distracted by YouTube, and it's kind of that season again where it's the end of the month, so you start seeing people's TBRs, and I was like, oh, I've got a June TBR. I've got a bunch of library books that I now actually have an official due date on because the libraries are semi-opening up where I am. We can return books, we can pick up holds starting this upcoming week. So they actually are expecting people to, follow due dates and things. And most of these books, well, they are library books that I got before all this quarantine mess started. And so some of them have have renewals left and some of them don't. But they're just kind of what I'd like to get through in the next month or so in June, since that's when they're going to be due, is towards the end of June. So it seems kind of perfect timing to try to get through a few of them, even if technically I could also just renew them. So let's hop into this. Let's start with Shark Drunk. This is one that I actually started reading this morning because I was trying to find something that I wanted to read. This is a memoir of someone who goes shark hunting off in Norway. They're looking for the Greenland shark, which is one of my favorite sharks. I think technically they're hunting it for killing and eating, maybe? I don't remember what it says on the back. But yeah, anyways, so it's a shark hunting memoir. So in some ways I'm really excited because I like the shark that's being featured, but I'm also really sad because I don't like the concept of hunting animals. I still eat meat, and I'm aware it's a thing that happens, but not one of my favorite things. So it's been interesting so far. I'm like 10 pages-ish in, and it's been a lot of the stuff leading up to them going on their shark hunt so far, which is both interesting because I get to picture all this beauty in like Norway, but at the same time it's like, I'm really bored right now. Where's the shark hunting? So we'll see if it picks up or not. But that's my first one. Next we have And in the Vienna Woods, the trees remain. This is a Holocaust-ish type memoir. It's not written by the actual person. I think the author, that her family was also impacted by the Holocaust, but she's specifically talking about another family that actually approached her and asked if she could write the memoir for them. Let's see. The story is specifically about Otto Ullmann, and he went from Austria to Sweden right before the start of World War II, and then it talks about kind of what happens to him and happens to his parents, and as part of it, it's really interesting because he actually ends up becoming close friends with the person who founds IKEA, so kind of just some interesting historical stuff that's going on in this one. I have already started it. I'm that far in, so not quite a third, I guess. It's been a fairly fast read, and it's been really fascinating so far. I really love historical stuff around the Holocaust. It's probably the time period that I go most to when I look for something historical. So I'm hoping that I can finish this one quickly, and I'm excited to keep reading it. So yeah, it just is also a little bit slower since it is like a historical type of novel, so that's part of why I haven't finished it yet, but I have been enjoying what I've read so far. And then, of course, in my TBR, I have to include my current book club book, What We Forgot to Bury. I actually also started reading this one today. I'm like 2.5 chapters in at this point, and it's part of why I was bouncing around books this morning, honestly, because I'm just not in a thriller mood anymore, and my book club keeps picking thrillers, but I know that I'll be reading it for the month of June, and we'll be finishing about this time in June based on the schedule that we have for it, so I'll just have to get over my issues that I'm having with it so far, and read another thriller. Whoop-de-doo-doo. I'm just ready for something else in the book club. And if they keep suggesting thrillers, maybe I'll take a break from the next book. We'll see. Alright, and then next on my list, I have Roseblood, which is like a Phantom of the Opera sort of retelling, sort of fan fiction. I was actually watching Maven of the Even Tides videos about her like Phantom of the Opera library that she's got, and this was one of the books she talked about, and it sounded kind of fun. I haven't gotten super far into it yet, but it's been interesting so far, and I'm kind of curious to see where it goes, so I don't mind the idea of keeping going with it. One fun thing with it that I did like, I don't know how well you can see it, but the font is actually written in red ink, which is really unique and different, and honestly is part of why I want to keep reading it, just because the look of it's so different, and I feel like that kind of impacts my interest in reading sometimes is unique fonts, or in this case a unique color of font, so that's something that I'm working on reading. Next we also have the Dragon Book, which is a collection of dragon short stories. I got this mostly because I was on a Diana Wynne Jones reading kick, and Diana Wynne Jones had a short story in here, and I've gotten to that point in this book, so I've read that far. And I don't know if I'm going to finish reading any of the other short stories because I was just kind of in it for Diana's, but I've liked the other short stories overall too. It's just always a thing with anthologies, especially when I pick them for a certain author. It's like, do I keep reading now that I've read that story? Am I still interested? I don't know. I have until mid-June to decide on this one, so there's that. And then I have a lot of books from the library still. I finally got to return some the other day, but I still have a lot because I had gone on a book binge, luckily, right before quarantine, but I still have a bunch. Now, the next one is The Library of the Unwritten, which I'm actually not sure if I want to read right now. It's one of those books that's got kind of like a sort of magical-ish library setting. I think technically this one's a library in hell, and it's about unfinished stories by authors. So the concept is really interesting because the unfinished stories go into this library and all that. So conceptually, I really like the sound of it, but I'm also already technically in the middle of a couple sort of similar books with magical library sort of settings, because I have a few books that I got for myself and from friends that are also sort of themed that way, so I kind of want to finish those first, but I'm also not in the mood to finish those right now, so I don't know if I'll actually get to this one. But it's on my list for someday, if nothing else, because conceptually I do like the sound of it. I just don't know if the timing is right for me right now because of the other books that I'm already in the middle of that involve similar themes. And then next we have A Wicked Like Wildfire, which I have started, but I'm only maybe a chapter in. This one involves magic and some twins in it, and yeah, kind of some mysterious life and death stuff going on, just skimming over this. It's supposed to be really good. I'm pretty sure I was watching someone on BookTube talk about it, and that's why I got it. But it's been like a month since I first started reading it, so I don't know if I'll keep up with it or not, because it was fairly interesting from what I started. But I don't know if I want to keep reading since it was already like, oh, I've read like a chapter and I haven't come back to it yet. So we'll see on that one. I know it's like a big series though, and some of the other titles sound really interesting, and half of why I pick books sometimes is for the titles. So I think that's also partly why I wanted to get into that series. But if I don't like it, I don't like it. So I'll probably have to just give it another read and see how it goes. Next we have The Rise and Fall of Dodo. This one, I was just randomly browsing the library and it sounded interesting. It's kind of like a spy organization, I think is what it was. It's set in 1851. And yeah, we've got translation of all documents, a revolution, or the scientific revolution, the age of enlightenment, and magic. So kind of historical fiction and kind of in an era I don't normally read. And so it kind of sounded interesting. So that would also be on my list for this. And then next we've got The Priory of the Orange Tree. Which is a big honker, so I don't know if I'll finish this before it needs to be renewed, but it was another one that was talked about on like BookTube that kind of sounded interesting and is part of why I picked it up. Again, with how big it is in all the other books I have kind of on my list, I don't know that I'll get to it before it needs to be renewed, but it's kind of like wishful thinking. These are all the books that I would want to read. And then finally, we have Arcadia. which is, again, just another one that I picked up from the library. I honestly don't remember what this one's even about. I have not started it yet, but it's another one that's from the library, so I need to either get reading on it or end up renewing it or decide that I want to give it back. So I guess that's kind of the theme, is that these are all library books that I need to finish before their due date, and or decide if I actually want to keep them and just return them or not. So yeah, but that's kind of my TBR. It's a very big one. That makes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 books that are my hopes to get through in June. And only one of them is a guarantee because it's for my book club, but we'll see. Like that Shark Drunk one is pretty short, and a lot of the others should go through pretty fast. Yeah, so we'll see how it goes, but I just kind of wanted to do a little update TBR of here are my library books that I can finally have a return date on, so I should probably get reading them. Reading list, basically, other than my book club one. But yeah, let me know what you guys are planning on reading for the month of June. If you have anything you're looking forward to reading this month that's coming out or anything, let me know. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I've read and what you thought of them, or I'm planning on reading, and if you've read them and what your thoughts are on them. And I think that's all I've got for now. But this is the Harper signing out.